save your anti-Rick speech for the Council of Ricks, Terror Rick. Hey, save your Rick rules for the Sheep Ricks, Rick Pig. Me, pal. You? No. Me.
Rick and Morty didn't just become a hit, it became a cultural phenomenon. For the first few years, it felt like the show was everywhere. Pickle Rick was unavoidable, Wubba Lubba Dub Dub became part of internet culture, and every new episode felt like an event. Rick and Morty were unstoppable.
What are you looking at, mother? Easy, Rick!
But today, the show's meteoric rise has plateaued and is now something of a cultural punching bag. What happened to this once great program? Was it a series of scandals, behind-the-scenes friction, or just the reality that you can't stay king of the hill forever? What exactly caused the meteoric rise and dramatic fall of Rick and Morty?
It's more complicated out here. These are flurbos. Do you understand what 2 humans can accomplish with 3,000 of these? What? An entire afternoon at Blips and Chips!
Created by Dan Harmon and Justin Roiland, Rick and Morty has a simple premise. What if we followed an eccentric scientist and his criminally meek nephew as they traveled the cosmos getting into wacky adventures? Only that simple high concept isn't really what made the show a success. It was the wildly unpredictable magic of the 2 creatives at the heart of the show, and their conflicting approaches to making art. At its core, Rick and Morty is a show about flawed people. Rick Sanchez, the alcoholic super genius, causes just about as many catastrophes as he fixes. And Morty, well, he's nothing if not a totemic representation of a human piñata. And the real-world creators at the center of this story are equally as flawed. Multiple cancellations, people being kicked out of production, and yet the show persevered. Or at least it seemed like it. It's been on the air almost continuously since 2014, and yet it seems to have waned in relevance. But to understand all of this, we need to go back to the beginning. Prior to Rick and Morty, showrunner Dan Harmon was known by most as the creator of Community and the primary force behind the beloved long-running comedy podcast Harmontown. But after the 3rd season of Community, Harmon was let go due to a variety of factors, most notably conflicts with Chevy Chase and difficulties in dealing with the studio. After his firing, Adult Swim reached out and asked if he'd be interested in creating a TV show for them. Despite the fact that they were mostly known for underground and subversive content, they wanted a more mainstream, applicable, animated primetime sitcom. And Harmon, in their esteem, seemed like the perfect creator to bridge that gap. Having never worked in animation before, Harmon pulled in his old friend, Justin Roiland. The pair had met through Harmon's Channel 101 Comedy Film Festival, where Roiland created a series of viral short films titled The House of Cosbys. After 5 episodes of the show aired on this burgeoning free internet streaming service named YouTube, Roiland received a cease and desist letter from the estate of Bill Cosby. In retaliation, Roiland tried to create the most offensive and copyright-infringed TV show of all time, which he titled Doc and Marty. It's basically an unlicensed continuation of the events of Back to the Future that he produced with the sole intention of getting sued. He wanted the publicity so he could launch further creative ventures. But thankfully, cooler heads prevailed and no lawsuits were filed, but the idea of Doc and Marty was stuck in Roiland's brain. So when Harmon reached out to him inquiring if he would be interested in working on an animated show, you can guess what Roiland pitched: an expanded and extrapolated version of the most unfilmable thing he had ever created. On paper, it seemed crazy. It would never work. But the fact it was so crazy is why it appealed to them. After a few discussions about how to retool the program to make it slightly less based on pre-existing intellectual property, the pair arrived at a project that would be equal parts Star Trek, Doctor Who, Harmon's trademark acidic sense of humor, and Roiland's inclination towards the bizarre. And shockingly, Adult Swim said yes. They were off to the races. They had their avenue forward. Now, all they needed to do was actually make the show. However, the creative friction from the network started almost immediately. Harmon and Roiland wanted the 2 main characters to both be voiced by Roiland himself. You see, improv was a big part of Roiland's process, and unsurprisingly, the Adult Swim brass in charge of the show's development did not like this. They didn't want to bet the farm on a guy who, in their eyes, had little to no experience on a show this big. However, after some long talks and a redefining of Rick and Morty to be more adversarial and conflict-prone, the show was greenlit.
Fine! You know what? Replace me! Replace me, Rick! Just do it! Good luck finding someone that can be told 80,000 times how replaceable they are!
Okay, I'll see your bluff call and raise you reality. I can't pretend I haven't been looking forward to this. Behold, my wheel of better things than Morty.
The first season of Rick and Morty premiered in December of 2013, airing 11 episodes in total. While the show was funny and felt like a viable mix of Harmon's sensibilities and Roiland's crass impulses, the show didn't seem like it was going to light the world on fire. It was a modest success for the network, but everyone agreed there was something here. Some untapped potential, something worth pursuing further. The episode Close Rick Counters of the Rick Kind, which is the 10th episode of Season 1, sets up a surprisingly heady concept for a television show of this kind. It plays around with the idea of a council of Ricks, a multiversal team of Ricks from all over the cosmos who are working collaboratively toward a collective goal. This is an idea much more at home in a high-concept sci-fi movie than a traditional animated sitcom, and so the team rapidly produced more episodes. Season 2 would build on this foundation while finding surprisingly inventive ways to push deeper into the characters and develop surprisingly emotional storylines. It would be the tension between these moments and the incorporating of laugh-out-loud sequences that were obviously just Justin Roiland improvising while drunk in the recording booth that really made the whole show sing. It felt completely unlike anything that had been on TV before, a strange hybrid of a big-budget animated program and a flash animated internet video. But it would be season 3 of the show where the doors would blow off the building. In this season, which aired in 2017, you'd have Pickle Rick, the Rick Shank redemption, and arguably the best episode of the show, the Ricklantis mix-up. That last episode is a brilliant bottle episode all about the political topography of the Citadel of Ricks, which is a secret interdimensional city-state populated exclusively by alternate versions of Rick and Morty. It's as funny as it is poignant, and thanks to the surprising level of quality, the show took off into the stratosphere. It became a major merchandise mover at Hot Topic, it spawned countless memes, brought back a long-retired dipping sauce at McDonald's, and it cemented itself as a countercultural institution. People instantly latched onto its irreverent and completely unique energy, for better or worse. However, this rise to cultural acceptance was not without its cost. Behind the scenes, a massive conflict was brewing. There were ostensibly 2 factions of creatives working on the show: Dan Harmon's more writer-oriented creatives and Justin Roiland's improv, animation, and indie comedy people. And the 2 groups were kind of like oil and water. Harmon was a proponent of a structure that he had coined as the story circle. He wanted everything to be built and made in a specific way to maximize the character depth of the show they were creating, while Roiland, urban legend has it, largely wanted to just get into the recording booth and improvise jokes. This, coupled with the fact that there were labor disputes and rumblings of a union forming, everyone was on edge. And then in 2018, something completely unprecedented happened. Adult Swim ordered 70 episodes of the show. 70. That quite literally has never happened before in the history of animation. That's at least 6 seasons of a television series. How can you guarantee that kind of success? Will the creators be able to even stretch this premise for all the years it'll take to create this much content? How did anyone think this was a good idea? When season 4 debuted in November of 2019, it seemed everyone and their mother was tuning in to see the next version of Pickle Rick that the show would come up with. There's only one problem. It's really hard to be surprised when you're tuning into a program specifically to be surprised. While season 4 wasn't bad, it didn't exactly reinvent the wheel either. The show now had a reputation as a sitcom that broke the mold and did crazy things. So now the creators had to either lean into that identity or shy away from it, both of which presented equally difficult problems. During the production of both season 5 and 6, the team behind Rick and Morty were full steam ahead. But to a lot of longtime fans, some of the magic seemed to be draining from the universe. Less improvisation, more standard plots. They were still inventive, but not completely unexpected. It was almost an embarrassment of riches. Too much of a good thing. By this point, the show felt different. The chaotic energy of those early seasons seemed to be completely dwindling in favor of a more staid and logical means of making a show. It was more consistent from an episode-to-episode perspective, but it rarely had the high highs of the early seasons. That's not necessarily a bad thing, it's just not the same. And then, the other shoe dropped. Justin Roiland was let go in 2023 on felony domestic assault charges. In the ensuing aftermath, wild stories of Roiland bringing adult performers to the office, getting in shouting matches with employees, and sending inappropriate messages to coworkers all leaked out. Eventually, it was revealed that Roiland had been relegated to working from home. Rumor has it that he was recording all his dialogue on his home computer, doing it once, and sending it in. Editors had to often edit out other people talking, dogs barking, and other noises because Roiland just was completely overworking on the show. This is a massive difference from his deeply involved and highly improved early recording sessions. The friendship that Harmon and Roiland had forged had now completely fallen apart. Their divergent working methods, different versions of what the show was, and Roiland's egregious personal flaws caused the center to collapse. Was it always destined to be this way? Or was this the stress of the gargantuan order that Adult Swim had placed? That's anyone's guess. With Roiland leaving, it meant that Dan Harmon was now in the driver's seat. As you might imagine, this would dictate a style that's involving less and less improv, absurd storylines, and more narrative links between episodes. Not to mention, the two main characters needed to be recast to maintain the 70-episode order. Fans everywhere were trying to guess who would take over the mantle. Would they find one guy to go back and forth like Roiland, or would they hire a tag team, one for each character? This was gonna make or break the future of Rick and Morty. No, they didn't end up going with that guy from TikTok. Instead, they opted to cast Ian Cardone and Harry Belden. Because of this, the highly anticipated Season 7 premiere was met with a massive marketing push from Adult Swim. They wanted it to work. Oh, they needed it to work. And by a strict network definition, it actually did work. Solid ratings and a mountain of Funko Pops were sold. The show was attempting to fire on all cylinders, with episodes being written by creative stalwarts like Rob Schraub and Cody Ziegler. And yet, from a longtime viewer perspective, it was just kind of fine. It lacked the magic. Case in point, the 9th episode of the season, Mort Ragnarok, was viewed by only 290,000 people, when just a few years prior, the premiere of Season 4 was viewed by 2.33 million people. That's an 88% drop. Talk about a massive fall-off. Season 8 would then be in the summer of 2025, and Season 9 followed suit, releasing episodes throughout the summer of 2026 to lower and lower ratings. The anarchic, irreverent, and utterly unpredictable show that was Rick and Morty was dead. And now in its place is a safer, more palatable show, one that has more in common with the long-running animated sitcoms of yesteryear than the bleeding edge animation it started as. The Simpsons and Family Guy can't last forever, right? Well, Rick and Morty were aiming to be their replacement, a warm blanket of non sequitur and mildly inappropriate toilet humor. The perfect type of 22-minute show that would allow you to enter a familiar world, meet characters you'd have seen before, and then leave feeling mildly happy. Rick and Morty, like most wildly popular cultural phenomena, was a victim of its own success. Only the bitter root that subsumed the entire enterprise was lurking in plain sight the whole time. It was the two men at the center of it. What does it say about us that we loved what they made? Harmon and Roiland each have their demons. Some are more germane to this conversation than others, but they're all findable with a quick Google search. Did they hold up a mirror to our collective black souls? Or did they just offer a hand in a cultural time of need, showing that we're all flawed and withering at the end of the day? We'll never know, because even though the charges against Roiland were dismissed, in the end it didn't matter. His behavior, the toxicity of his choices, and the massive output of episodes caused the unthinkable. This highly personal program was sanded down into nothing more than content. Delicious, completely non-offensive content. And well, that's all we have for this episode. What do you think? Will Rick and Morty ever reach its previously majestic heights? Let us know in the comments below. If you like this topic, please like and subscribe for more Nerdstalgic videos just like this.